welcome back. This is part 2 of a 10-part series on Austrian Economics. If you missed part 1, hit the link in the top right to check it out. Last time, we talked about the method of Austrian economics, namely praxeology. It's the rational analysis of the implication of the fact that humans act. Today, we'll be talking about means, ends, and subjective value. By the end of the video, I want to be able to explain why everything with the Supreme brand is so expensive. This is a regular clay brick, except the Supreme logo is imprinted on the side. It sells for over $200. Just to give you a comparison, some dude is literally giving away 100 clay bricks on Kijiji. I don't know about you, but this kind of stuff used to drive me nuts. It just struck me as everything wrong with the world. The same amount of effort went into making each brick. So if one could be so expensive, there must be something wrong with the system that sets the prices. We'll come back to this at the end. So last time I explained that action is purposeful behavior. It necessarily entails means and ends. Ends are the things we value. It's what we aim at whenever we act. At any given moment, there are many different ends we can aim at. However, since we can't be at multiple places at once, whenever we act, we choose certain ends over others. It reveals a preference. We act to attain the things we prefer. That is, the things we value more, over our other ends. When Austrian economists talk about valuing one thing more than another, it's important to understand that the value of our ends are ordinal, not cardinal. What this means is that they're ranked, but not capable of being added or subtracted. Ordinal numbers are first, second, third, fourth, etc., while cardinal numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. You can say that 2 is twice as much as 1, but you can only say that first is before second. Economically, it's meaningless to say you like Marvel twice as much as DC. You just prefer one or the other. And since every action reveals a preference, in theory, we have a value hierarchy, a ranking of preferences that's implicit in all of our actions. In practice, this value hierarchy is always changing, so you can never really know the whole of someone's value hierarchy. You just know that at any given moment, he will act to achieve the highest value end available to him. This is because our value hierarchy is not something separate from the actions themselves. A person can't fail to act on the basis of this value hierarchy. For the purposes of economics, a person values whatever he acts to attain. Another important point about ends is that they're infinite. Humans act. We're always aiming at something, and no matter how many ends of ours we satisfy, we just move down the hierarchy. Now, we act to attain our ends by using means. Means are anything scarce that are used in the course of human action. And means must be scarce, because otherwise they're not properly the object of action. Consider air. Since it's immediately accessible to us and not used up in any practical sense, it's not really a factor in people's choices. You can imagine that on a spaceship, air is scarce, and it would become an object of action. In that circumstance, it would be a mean. Now, scarcity doesn't mean something can't be abundant. Even in the Garden of Eden, there would be scarcity in the economic sense of the word, because even if apples are abundant, it still takes time to fetch an apple, time and effort which could have been used to attain something else. Time, labor, money, tools, these are all examples of means because they are used to help us achieve our goals and used up in the process. Even something durable, like a hammer, is worn out through use in the long run, and in the short term, when I use a hammer, it's not available for you to use. Means derive their value from the ends they enable us to attain. This is called utility. If water is a means to quenching thirst, its utility is equivalent to the value of thirst quenching. If we use water to shower, the utility of water is the value of being clean. And when you hear people talk about the economy, you'll hear people mention goods and services. These are just means. Things we buy because they enable us to achieve our ends. A consumer's good is a good that's immediately available to satisfy a want, whereas a producer's good is something that derives its value from the other goods or services it lets us produce. This can be a relative idea. For example, we can think of bread as a consumer's good and flour as the producer's good that was used to make it. But if you buy flour at the grocery store, then it's a consumer's good. You could also use the bread to make a sandwich and consider the bread the producer's good and the sandwich the consumer's good. The label you use just depends on whatever makes the most sense in the context. Every action is a kind of exchange. Even when we don't trade with other people, we act to replace our current state of affairs with a different, preferable state. We also exchange the means we use for the ends we hope to attain. Right now, you're exchanging your time and attention to attain whatever information is in this video. The things we give up is the price, and the utility of the things we give up is the cost. And the difference between the value of the ends we achieve and the cost we give up is the psychological profit. You can't actually measure this for any action, but people always act with the expectation of a psychological profit or gain. We'll build more on this idea in future videos, but for now it's just important to understand that people act to use the means available to them to achieve as many of their highest ranking ends as possible. So, if the value of means comes from the ends they help us to attain, where does the value of our ends come from? As far as economics is concerned, nowhere. Psychologists might study why people value what they do, and philosophers might study what people should value, but economists must take people's values and wants as a given. It's a fact like any other in the world. This is the idea of subjective value. It's one of the ideas of Austrian economics that's been picked up by mainstream economics, and it's revolutionized economic thinking. Before Karl Menger developed the idea of subjective value, classical economists tried to explain the value of goods by the factors of their production. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith explained the value of goods as being derived from the rent for land, wages for labor, and profit for capital investment used in their production. Marxists focused on the labor factor. Marx theorized that the value of a good is the value of the labor put into it. The best argument against this that I know comes out of Starship Troopers, a fantastic book, by the way. The teacher, Mr. Dubois, tells his class, "All the work one cares to add will not turn a mud pie into an apple tart. It remains a mud pie. Value, 0. By corollary, unskillful work can easily subtract value. An untalented cook can turn wholesome dough and fresh green apples, valuable already, into an inedible mess. Value, 0. Conversely, a great chef can fashion of those same materials a confection of greater value than a commonplace apple tart, with no more effort than an ordinary cook uses to prepare an ordinary sweet." This little passage helpfully illustrates how goods derive their values from our ends. Value doesn't flow from production to consumption, but from consumption to production. Producers' good derive their value from the consumer's good they're used to produce. Means derive their value from the ends they enable us to achieve. In this way, the whole economy shapes itself around the preferences of consumers. Okay, so now we're ready to return to the initial question. Why can Supreme sell a brick for over $200 and the guy on Kijiji will give away a pile for free? The answer is subjective value. People value the Supreme brick because it enables them to achieve their ends, whether it's a matter of prestige, or it's a funny thing to own, or it makes them feel like they participated in a social movement. On the other hand, the guy giving away the bricks might value the space they occupy in the garage more than the bricks, so much so that he would rather get rid of them sooner for free than sell them later for some amount of money. Now, this isn't the whole picture. The problem that we're talking about is hitting on something called the paradox of value, and I'll revisit it when we talk about supply and demand. But that's it for today. Please join me next time when I explain the concept of diminishing marginal utility. If you found this video helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss part 3. And if you really want to help with the channel, just share it with a friend. Thanks, and see you next time.